Hello, everybody. So today our talk is about iron and hormones. So do make sure you put any questions you have down in the comment section so that we can answer them throughout the live. So we'll be answering questions mainly on iron and hormones, but if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to ask. We are here to answer them here today. There she is.
Hi there, everybody.
Welcome, Lorna, my mom, to our Instagram live today, our very first live of 2024. So yay, we made it to 2024, everybody. And it's, depending where you are in the country, our weather has been very sporadic this winter. So I'm happy that everyone has been able to join us. And as I said before, today's talk is on iron and hormones and the importance of both, of course, but of the importance of iron and your hormones. So if you don't know already, Lorna Vanderhaeghe, yes, she's my mom. She is a women's health expert, and she was a pioneer in our supplement industry for women's health. And she had an amazing line of women's supplements that I was really fortunate of taking when I was in my late teens, early 20s. So I was very lucky to be able to be on great products from an early age. So let's jump right in, Mom. Iron and hormones. So iron deficiency is the #1 nutrient deficiency worldwide and also here in Canada. And of course, it's not just our pregnant moms that are iron deficient. It's our babies, our toddlers, our teens, our women, our athletes, and of course, our seniors. So that is huge. That's a huge amount of people that can be walking around with low iron deficiency, or iron deficiency anemia. It's just amazing that it can be that widespread.
Well, it is. I mean, it's so widespread that actually that we probably should be adding iron to our foods. And I mean, the problem with iron deficiency is that it's linked to so many health problems. And today we're going to talk about iron and hormones, because a lot of people don't realize that they need to have adequate iron levels in order for their hormones to function properly. But just to get into it, so how would you know if you're iron deficient? If you're not going to the doctor and having a standard blood test, which even the blood tests have problems, because up until recently, the range of normal was so broad that even people who were iron deficient fell into the normal category. Thankfully, at least in BC, in British Columbia, Canada, they've changed the baseline for your ferritin level. Ferritin is your iron storage. So when you go to the doctor and you get a blood test, you have your hemoglobin checked and you have your ferritin checked. And now at least your ferritin is supposed to be 100. Back when I had iron deficiency and anemia, my ferritin was 5. Well, let me tell you what the symptoms of iron deficiency are. So simple things like peeling fingernails, hair loss, especially thinning hair on the edge of your head. So if you're one of those women where you notice your part is getting wider or your hair is thinning on top, or you've got an infant who's just not growing hair, or you're an elderly person with this wispy thin hair, those are all signs of iron deficiency. Heart palpitations, dark circles under the eyes. And please, if you're a mom, look at your kids. If you're a grandma, look at your grandchildren, because often our kids are missed on this iron deficiency, and it's so important for brain development. Things like fatigue, pale skin, no appetite, grinding your teeth, restless legs, sleep disorders, tantrums in kids, no appetite, anxiety, depression, and hormone problems. So, I mean, that's a big list for something that is so simple to fix with a nutritional supplement.
And actually, when you're talking about the grinding of the teeth, so with kids, they can have pica, where they're eating non-food items because their body is just craving, needing the iron, and they're not getting it. Now, remember, chewing ice. So how many pregnant women out there chew ice because they think they're craving it? Well, it's actually a symptom of low iron.
It is. And, you know, I mean, truly, you and I have talked about this before. Iron deficiency is serious. It's a serious problem in our children. It's a serious problem for the elderly. I mean, if you think about cognitive decline, it may just be that they're nutrient deficient.
Yeah. And especially with kids, you're right. We're talking about behavioral. Well, your brain is growing from in utero for, and you're a baby. If you're low in iron at birth, that's when your brain and your body is growing rapidly. If we don't have the nutrients for that, we're not going to be able to support the growth properly.
Yeah. Right.
So Now we know what the signs are. How can we become iron deficient? Like, what are the common reasons?
Well, you're not eating enough iron-rich foods, which is very common because, I mean, today everybody's gone plant-based. And, the highest sources of iron are in red meat and egg yolks and things that a lot of people just are not consuming so much. Vegetarians, of course, are at risk. And I was a vegetarian for 20 years, so I know that there are ways to get adequate iron. But if you have heavy periods, which is also a symptom of iron deficiency, you're not going to be eating enough iron to replenish yourself. It's just not going to happen. And really, if you're a vegetarian, you should be supplementing with iron. And frankly, I think everybody should be supplementing with a low dose iron every single day. Not big doses, but small amounts of iron, an adequate amount. We should be getting 20 milligrams of iron from our daily diet, and we are getting 8.
Yeah.
So we are far short of what we require from the diet. Even if you're one of those people who says, oh no, I can get it all from my diet, you'd have to be eating cow's liver every single day, and most people are not. So, also athletes, because they sweat, they're losing iron through their sweat. People with gut disorders, they're just simply not absorbing iron properly. Then we have, if you've got a ton of inflammation happening in the body, maybe you've got an autoimmune disorder or arthritis, you're not going to be absorbing iron. And we had this discussion this morning, you and I. If you're that woman who gets up in the morning and you have no appetite until 10:30, you probably have low stomach acid, which means you're not making nutrients properly, you're not absorbing the nutrients properly. So there's a whole host of reasons why we have iron deficiency, and a lot of it comes down to diet.
Yeah, and I was on the diet front talking about calcium. So how many people out there are having 2 or 3 milk lattes a day? And is that contributing to our iron deficiency? Because if we're not filling up the cup enough with our iron levels, and then of course the foods we're putting in, so calcium inhibits iron absorption. So if you're that woman taking, 3 lattes a day, what do you think about their iron levels?
Well, probably they're getting too many calories from dairy anyways. And anybody who's looked at the Canadian Food Guide knows that they've eliminated dairy. So part of it, of course, is this problem where we're just not absorbing enough iron. So it goes along. And the number of people with gut problems is also a serious concern.
Right. And because you were talking about the malabsorption because of your intestines, but also if you're losing blood because of those conditions, correct?
Right. And I mean, we discussed H. pylori, which is very common. People who have heartburn, gas, burping, you should go to the doctor and have a test for H. pylori. It's so prevalent. And if your husband has H. pylori, you probably have H. pylori too, because we tend to share it around in families. So definitely there's some tests that could be done. And, if you've got severe anemia, they usually look at things like CRP and other inflammatory markers. They should be looking at your gut and figuring out if maybe you have a bacteria like H. pylori that's contributing to your nutrient deficiencies.
What test did you just say?
H. pylori test.
No, the other one. For inflammation.
Oh, CRP. So, and when you go to the doctor, you want the HS, so it stands for highly specific CRP, which is a very important test because it looks at CRP is an inflammatory protein that's produced by the liver when you have a lot of inflammation going on in the body. So it's a very simple test. It's covered by all of the Canadian medical plans.
Great. Okay, good to know. So now we know the signs. We know how we can become iron deficient. Those are big ones. And of course, we know that everybody can be affected by this. So now what is the role of iron with hormones? So does low iron impact our hormones?
Absolutely. So let's talk about what hormones are, because people think hormones are just estrogen and progesterone and testosterone for men. But we have many hormones. We have hormones that are designed, like our happy hormone, called serotonin, that is produced in the gut, sent to the brain, and keeps us from having anxiety and depression. So that's a hormone. We have insulin, which is a hormone which pushes blood sugar into our cells to be utilized. So there are many other hormones in the body that are needed to be produced. Of course, if you've got gut problems, you're probably not going to make enough serotonin, which leads to your depression and anxiety and low moods and probably tantrums in kids. But iron deficiency is a big challenge when it comes to making hormones. You need iron to make serotonin. You need iron to make estrogen and progesterone. So here are all these women with super heavy periods in their 40s or maybe their 30s
or younger.
Or younger. We're seeing a lot of women today with terrible flooding, heavy periods or long periods, which if you have 2 heavy or flooding or long periods in a row, you become iron deficient. 3 and you're anemic. And when that happens, of course, then you don't have enough iron to make your female sex hormones. And then you end up with all kinds of other problems, PMS, infertility, a whole host of issues. And fertility is directly linked to iron deficiency. I always tell women, you shouldn't even try to get pregnant until your ferritin is 100. Mm-hmm. You really shouldn't. So you need iron to have the metabolism to create those hormones. And sadly, we're in a very deficient state.
Right. I know. I really wanted to talk about fertility because, as you said, that's a big issue with iron deficiency. And so if we're thinking about becoming pregnant, what do we do?
Well, the first thing you do is change your diet, because now you're going to become a vessel to grow a baby. Excuse me. But when we think about it, you want to make sure when you go to a doctor, you'll go to your doctor and say, I want to get pregnant. We call this the preconception time frame. 50% of women of childbearing years have terrible iron deficiency or anemia because they're not eating the right foods that are loaded with iron. They may have heavy periods. Those are 2 major contributors. Maybe they love to work out a lot and they're sweating a lot. But whatever the reason is, we already know that half the women of childbearing years are deficient in iron or have iron deficiency anemia. Those women need to get their iron up. They need to get their ferritin, their iron storage to 100. And I don't think you should start trying to get pregnant until you are 100. Now, if you're one of those women who got pregnant, then you go to your doctor, they test your iron, they say, oh, it's terribly low. Then you need to get your iron up to a minimum, your ferritin up to 100, so that we can make sure that your baby is going to develop properly. We know that low iron, I'll flip it around. Adequate iron levels prevent premature birth. So your baby has a much better chance. We know that iron deficiency causes a lack of oxygen to be carried in the blood. So that's really important when you're pregnant. So you should be on iron. And as I said at the beginning, I think that everybody needs iron and kids should be on it for sure. One of the real sad situations in our country is when you have a baby, that baby should have their iron levels checked right out of the gate. Because when you and I started looking at the research around infants and iron deficiency, it's lasting. And we think about all these tantrums and sleep problems and learning disorders. It could simply be because that child did not get enough iron in utero when the mom was pregnant. That's why it's so important that a pregnant mom gets her iron levels up. And, you've got a great iron. I mean, the one thing you didn't say in your introduction is that you ran my entire supply chain for my nutritional supplement company. So you bought all of the raw ingredients and had very strict rules about what ingredients we could buy. So you've transferred that over to your company and you've made the best iron products there's nothing like it on the market. I mean, your iron products, the liquid irons and the chewables do not turn your teeth gray. I mean, you look at some of these products that are sold on the market and they actually say may turn your teeth gray. Well, if you take liquid irons that are not your iron, they will turn your teeth gray if they are not the special iron that you have that is micronized and microencapsulated. And I love that you have liquid irons that are delicious with no sugar in them for kids and for adults. So it's not, even though your company is called KidStar Nutrients, your products are for all ages. You've just specialized in children. And then your chewables are phenomenal. And, you were just on Dragon's Den, so people should go and watch your Dragon's Den segment. And, I think that we can take a small amount of iron every day. I think people are always afraid that iron is dangerous. Well, yes, if you ate an entire bottle of iron at one sitting, that could be problematic. But taking iron on a daily basis, unless you are one of the very rare people that has a condition called hemochromatosis, where you store iron, iron is very safe, especially because the majority of us are iron deficient.
Right. And on the hemochromatosis front, you can still become iron deficient when you have hemochromatosis. So you do have to monitor that as well. Because if you're, again, not eating anything with iron in it, your body's not storing it anyways. Right. So you do have to monitor either way if you have hemochromatosis, and you could end up with iron deficiency as well. So we do have to monitor for both on that. And right. Yes, our BioFe Iron line is of course specialized for kids to start off with, because we can be born with iron deficiency, and we want to make sure that we're getting our levels up early so that later on in life we don't have as many difficulties.
Right. And you have an iron baby drops that just has iron in it, which is so nice. And you can drop those drops, you know, onto any kind of food, or you can drop them directly into the baby's mouth if you wish. But and again, here we go. If you're iron deficient when you're pregnant, you should probably say to your doctor, I want to have my kid tested when they're born, my infant tested, because now you've learned how incredibly important it is. But you have BioFe Iron in the liquid. It contains 15 milligrams of elemental iron. And I want to state this, which is so important. Often doctors will tell people you need 300 milligrams of iron. Well, that only delivers 30 milligrams of elemental iron. So there's a lot of confusion. So if your doctor tells you you need 300 milligrams of iron, you would be looking at taking 30 milligrams of elemental iron. And one day I hope Health Canada insists that all iron products are labeled with elemental and remove the ones that are not labeled properly. So with your liquid, it's 15 milligrams per teaspoon. You have, you know, double the dose and double the number of servings. I mean, it's the best value on the market, and it tastes absolutely delicious. And then you have a little chewable in a 5 milligram. Great. That you could take every day, and it's great for kids. They love it. And you also have a little great chewable that's 10 milligrams. So you have the baby drops, and then you have these other 3 options. So there's absolutely no reason one of those formats will fit for people in the family. And I just remember visiting my mom in the care home and looking at all the women there who had this thin, wispy hair. And I guarantee you, from the crummy diet they all ate, that they were all iron deficient.
Oh, definitely. And, you know, now having these solutions like BioFe Iron and our iron line, it's like a weight lifted off of you as well. Because, you know, as a mom, I have 3 kids. As you know, you are a grandma to 10. And it's hard to get our kids to eat what they need to be eating in a week. So, you know what? The guilt can be lifted off when they just won't eat that food, when you can supplement instead until they're ready to eat it.
How many kids under the age of 5 are eating a lot of red meat based foods or high iron content foods? I always laugh when I hear people say, oh, you know, you can get all your nutrients from food. And I'm like, no, you absolutely cannot, especially if you're a child, because children just don't eat everything that we put in front of them.
And if they do, they eat a tiny little bit. And you're like, that is not enough. But we had some amazing questions come through before we did the live. So I got them down here for us to go through them. And I think there was a few in the questions there, in the comments there. Oh, there you're back. You're gone a second for me.
The phone did something funky.
Oh,
I apologize.
No worries. So one of them was, what's the brand? So it's the KidStar BioFe Iron is what we were talking about.
Right.
And that's the micronized, microencapsulated iron. Doesn't sting the teeth, no digestive upset, and of course it tastes amazing. So that was one of the questions there.
And I want to deal with the name BioFe. So the FE stands for iron. Bio means it's bioavailable, meaning you're actually absorbing this iron, and it's not going to give you black stools. Why do people get black stools when they take iron? It's because their body is actually getting little bleeds. So terrible. And that's why your stool turns black. They're not absorbing it. And so that's very, very important.
Right. And then here's another question. Should women change their iron supplementation levels based on what part of the cycle they're in?
No, you should take it every day, because remember, the body doesn't really work like that. You want to have, you want to be able to ensure that you've got adequate iron, especially if you're a child, especially if you are menstruating. And think about your teenagers. Here we have these young girls in sports, hockey, basketball, soccer, things like gymnastics and swimming, and they're just not getting enough nutrition. Those young women with periods need to take iron on a daily basis.
Okay. And so if you had a heavy cycle, would you take more iron after, or would you also have to deal with the heavy cycle reason, but would you keep the same amount of iron every day?
Well, I would take the same amount of iron every day. And if you have heavy periods, I recommend you go and get your iron, your hemoglobin, and ferritin checked. And if it's low, then I would take the pregnancy dose, which is 30 milligrams of elemental iron. And I know people are asking, how much iron do I take? If you have heavy periods, if you're an athlete, if you already know that you're anemic or have iron deficiency based on blood tests, you should be taking 30 milligrams. If you're pregnant, you should take 30 milligrams of elemental iron. If you want to prevent that from happening, then you could take 10 milligrams every day, small amount. Kids should be on 10 milligrams. And someone asked what the best time of day to take iron is, and do I need to take it with food? Well, the beauty of the KidStar BioFe Iron is that you can take it whenever you want. It's microencapsulated. It's not going to give you tummy upset. You're not getting constipated. And so you don't have to worry about when you take it. You can take it whenever you want.
Right. Which is the best part, because honestly, if you forget, you're going to take it when you remember, which is really important. All right. Our next question. My daughter is 16 and has had her period for 1 year. Does she need to take iron daily? Well, I think we already know the answer to that.
The answer is absolutely, positively yes. And if she doesn't have heavy periods, she take 10 milligrams of elemental iron per day.
Okay.
So
perfect. Now, do teen boys or men need iron?
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. I remember your brother, he grew a foot in 2 years. There was no way he could eat enough food to give him the nutrient contents that he needed, and supplementation was even more important. And as I said, athletes, men and women, teen athletes, boys and girls, both need to take iron. And if you're an athlete, I can tell you that if you're the guy in the gym lifting weights all the time, or you're a runner, then or a weekend warrior, you should be ensuring, especially if you're not a big meat eater. And so many people now are just eating the whites of the eggs instead of the whole egg. So if you're not eating a lot of iron-rich foods, you should be taking an iron supplement. Again, if you're an adult, go get your iron tested. Go get your ferritin and hemoglobin tested. For kids, it's a little bit more challenging, although we are looking at a new ferritin test that you can take by just pricking your finger.
Right.
So stay tuned for that, because you'll see it on the KidStar website.
You won't even have to leave your house now.
Yeah.
Very exciting. And so with the kids, you can go to a children's hospital outpatient, or you could go to a Life Labs and call them ahead and tell them you're bringing a child in, and ensure there is someone there that is very skilled with kids, so that it is much smoother, one take and you're done. But you're right, because the thing is that if you have signs and symptoms, you need a lot more iron than our maintenance dose, which you just increase as per the doctor recommendation. Yep. But we know how detrimental low iron is. So that small prick is nothing in comparison to what could be happening in your child's body and adults, right, that we could be solving with an iron supplement.
Right. And, you experienced that with one of your children, which is why you developed these products, is because you had a child, you had a cesarean and a pre-bleed. And as a result, you had a child with iron deficiency, which creates a whole host of problems. I mean, she has no problem now getting her iron levels tested. She's a pro.
Yeah, no, she's definitely got it down to a science now. She also knows she gets a treat at the end, so it does help a little bit. We have some other good questions here. So we already did. Oh, okay. How much iron do I take if I am perimenopausal? In perimenopause.
Okay, so Menopause, that's the 10 years, 10 to 15 years before.
Oh. I stopped being able to hear you. Hopefully other people can hear you. Can we still hear Lorna? There you are.
Problem with using the phone.
No worries.
So perimenopause is the 10 to 15 years before menopause. The average age of menopause is 52. And that's when a lot of women start to have long periods, 2 periods a month, heavy periods. But again, let's start beforehand, because one of the symptoms or side effects of iron deficiency is heavy periods.
Yeah.
So why not get on iron when you're younger to help prevent these problems that happen to us, especially the hormonal problems, because they're all interconnected. So start when you're young, get on an iron supplement, stay on it, get tested. And so if you're in perimenopause and you don't have heavy periods, then you should take 10 to 15 milligrams a day. And if you have heavy periods, you want 30 milligrams of elemental iron. And you can go more than that if you have to, especially if you were like me, who had the heavy periods and the ferritin of 5. I had to take a lot of iron to kind of shore up. It's like you're putting your finger in the dike, because every month you're losing iron and losing
more and more
iron. So you got to build up more.
Yeah. All right. So the other question was, do you ship outside of Canada? So I can answer that one. You can find some of our products on Amazon.com already. And there are some online providers in Canada who will ship to the US. And soon our website will be able to ship to our US customers. Very, very soon, just not yet. So that is that question. Our iron looks cloudy. Yes, it does. So it looks cloudy because our iron is encapsulated. So it is coated. So the iron actually is white. So if you saw it in this raw material stage, it's actually white. So when it goes into the mixture, it looks cloudy, and that is on purpose. So if you see a cloudy mixture, you're good to go. What else do we have here?
I want to talk about that microencapsulation. So micronizing makes the iron super, super fine, and then microencapsulating it makes sure that your teeth don't turn black, that your tummy doesn't get upset, that it goes to the absorption site, that it's absorbed properly. So it's absolutely key. And in my opinion, I don't think anyone should take iron that isn't micronized and microencapsulated. So having that cloudiness is a good thing. And the great thing about your products is they have minimal ingredients. Yes. I mean, very minimal. You have products that only have 2 ingredients, iron products. So you've gone to great lengths to make super clean, high quality iron supplements.
Yes. Well, we are making them for our families in mind as well. So we knew if we weren't going to give them to our kids, we were not going to sell them to another family. So it's very important to us to make products that were as clean as possible for all the families out there.
It's true.
Yeah, I'll just see if we have any more questions. I'll look in the comments if we missed any. If we did miss any, we can always go back to them once we post the live later.
Someone was asking about, should I take it with food? Well, if you're taking BioFe Iron, you can take it whenever you want. If you're taking other irons, there's a whole host of things you should be doing.
It's true. It's very true. Yeah. Because ours doesn't give any digestive upset, so you don't have to worry about it. So other irons that do cause digestive upset, they recommend at bedtime so that you're asleep when that's occurring. So for us, thankfully, that doesn't occur. And then also our iron that's in the kids' multivitamin, because our iron is coated, it doesn't interact with the other minerals and vitamins in the multivitamin. So you are still getting the full effect from the iron in our multivitamin, whereas other irons can interact with minerals in other products. So do ensure that you're only having an encapsulated iron so it does actually get the iron in the product. And then I think that is our last question. So thank you so much, Lorna. If there's anything you think we missed, we can talk about it now, or we can save it to our next live.
Well, people need to go to your website at KidStar Nutrients. And also go watch your Dragon's Den segment.
Yes, that was a very, I think it was fun.
Season 18, episode 11, right?
Wow, good memory.
Yeah.
And actually,
people should go watch it.
Very exciting news. We won fan favorite for our day. So that was very exciting. KidStar won fan favorite for our episode. So
awesome.
Yeah.
That's good.
Have a wonderful week, everybody, and Happy New Year.